Friends and fellow ITGNs, distinguished speakers, delegated guests from GSA, MIPP, IATAV, AII, welcome to the special grant event organized by our club titled Post PhD Opportunities in Australia. I thank you all for the huge support you are offering to our activities via active participation. This support is what motivates us for putting maximum effort when it comes to organizing events like this. I would like to thank all the speakers who have agreed to attend this event and share their valuable knowledge with us in spite of their busy schedule. We got amazing talks from experienced personalities in academia, industry and immigration planned for you, packed with answers to all sorts of questions you might be asking yourself as you start looking beyond your PhD. The event is planned as an interactive session with 5 minutes question and answers following each talk, and amazing networking opportunities over tea and dinner. We also acknowledge the request from our club members who volunteered to assist and campaign for the flood relief operations in Kerala. In addition to helping the committee in providing catering services, they coordinated with Fair Food Challenge team of Unimel and arranged reusable cutlery from Unicycle. Unicycle has provided us their facilities in a discounted rates, as we have agreed to donate the discounts to help the flood victims from Kerala. I would like to use this opportunity to request all of you to support the humanitarian efforts put up by our volunteers. Kindly contact Naveen, Chinchu or Rahul over the networking session if you wish to do a donation to the Chief Minister's Distress Relief Fund for the Kerala flood victims. This special grant event was a dream passed on to us by the previous committee. I thank them, the current committee and other members of the club who made it a reality with their constant hard work and dedication. Once again, a warm welcome to all of you on behalf of ITG committee. Enjoy the talks and reap the maximum out of them. A few quick announcements before we move on to the talks. Water and hot beverages are arranged in the foyer over here. I can go through that exit or this one. And toilets can be located to your left once you exit this room. The event is recorded by lecture capture system. Please feel free to contact the committee members or volunteers if you need any help at any point during the event. Now I welcome Neeta Lohani, who led the team towards the successful implementation of the special grant event, to introduce us to the speakers and chair the rest of the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bigi, for the wonderful welcome speech. So let's start the event. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Dick Strugnell, who kindly agreed to mark the opening of the event. Professor Dick Strugnell is the Associate Dean International and former Vice-Chancellor of Graduate Research at the University of Melbourne. He is a microbiologist with a research interest in disease-causing bacteria and in the development of vaccines against bacterial infections. He has been involved with graduate research matters since late 1999, and he has continuously supported MIP and MIPA from the beginning and has been an integral part of all its activities. Please welcome Professor Dick Strugnell.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming out on a Friday evening when you could be doing other things. I don't know what students do, graduate students do on Friday evenings these days, but I certainly know what I did when I was a graduate student many years ago now. So welcome everyone, and welcome especially those people who aren't members of the University of Melbourne. Welcome to our campus. And I would start, as I always would, by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, who were the indigenous our indigenous ancestors here, who lived on this land continuously for more than 50,000 years. And we as a university pay our respects to the Wurundjeri elders, both past and present. Now you're here this evening, as I understand it, to learn about employment opportunities post-graduation. And you'll be told that employment is greatly facilitated by having permanent residency. So it's not essential that you have permanent residency, but in many cases, many of the granting agencies will support people who are permanent residents where they won't take applications from people that aren't. And so there will be, I believe, some discussion about gaining permanent residency. One of the things that is certain, though, that in completing a graduate research degree in Australia now, visa opportunities open up, and you are probably more aware of those than I am. But these visa opportunities will allow you to work in this country. at the very least. Now, why might you want to do this? Why might you want to stay and work in Australia? I've just returned from India myself. I was in India for a couple of weeks with Ashok and Meenakshi. And as always, I had a fantastic experience there. It's not my first visit by any means. You go there, and for someone like me who had no experience of India before I went for the first time maybe 5 or 6 years ago, counselled heavily by Ashok, I find it, full of community, full of life, full of development, no question, moving forward at a rapid pace. But there's no question also that India's large population puts pressure on that development. That's a given. And I think even with the challenges that are in front of India, there's no question too, and from this university's perspective, that India in 10, 15, 20, 30 years' time won't be an enormous powerhouse for this region. And that's one of the reasons that drove our university to engage much more closely with India. We have ambitions at this university to collaborate with, to partner with India. It's not a question anymore of any sort of patronage. We don't see ourselves as being able to, solve problems that are India's problems. We just, I think now, like to work with India on common problems. And the sorts of problems that are faced in India, growing securely food in an environment that is deplete of water, that is heating rapidly, those challenges face us in Australia, and the solutions will usually be common solutions. And so there's great opportunities to develop research collaboratively with especially the leading Indian institutions. And I've had the great privilege of visiting 3 of the IITs and the IISc in Bangalore, and I'm never unimpressed when I go there. I'm usually blown away by the really exciting things that I hear. Okay, so looking ahead, we will need new skills in this country, no question. We will need new skills in areas like financial management, in chemical engineering, in infrastructure engineering, in food chemistry, microbiology, the area that I work in, many other disciplines. If we're going to engage with India, we're going to need academics who are culturally literate, who understand what it is to work in India, and we will like our Indian colleagues and collaborators to understand what it's like to work in Australia, and you are great exemplars of this. In my most recent visit to India, I went to Shantha Biotech, and I don't know if any of you know Shantha. It's in Hyderabad. It's not far from the so-called Genome Valley area of Hyderabad. A former graduate student of mine, having finished his PhD at Melbourne, went back there. He now runs a team of 200. He produces batches of 40 million doses of vaccine 3 times a year, and these vaccines are used by UNICEF, WHO, all around the world. That's a piece of engineering, a piece of facility that we have nothing, equivalent in Australia. It was just amazing. And so we have a lot to learn from our Indian colleagues, I would argue. Now, if you're going to develop skills that might be of interest to someone like Shantha, where might you do that in Australia? This is always, a testing idea. We have a company, CSL Limited, that just lives across the other side of Royal Parade. They live in Bio 21. Their research division is there. It's in the top 10 companies in Australia. They have recently announced they're going to invest another 200 million on top of their existing R&D expenditure, another 200 million in people to build their research and development capability. They will be needing new engineers. They have a lot of production facilities. They'll be needing new basic scientists. Those sorts of opportunities will exist. People like yourselves who come from highly, highly competitive environments will know how to compete for those roles. Now, I personally think it's an exciting time for someone to be in graduate research. Sometimes you hear our colleagues say, oh, well, the academy, it's getting harder to get an academic job and all this. And I think, at some level that's true. We're certainly training a lot more PhD students now than we used to. And you'll hear a bit about the academy as a pathway for Meenakshi and Ashok when he arrives. But Equally, the group here tonight are super competitors. As graduates of the IITs, you already understand what it is to compete, no question. If you've come out of a high-quality Indian institution, then you've competed very, very effectively to get there. And the job situation in Australia, although the academic job I'm talking about now, situation in Australia, while competitive, it's certainly going through a growth phase. And I know our engineering faculty at Melbourne is going through a massive growth phase at the moment. And we'll need a lot more academics, and a lot more academics who are, as I said, culturally literate when it comes to working with countries like India. What sort of jobs will be here in the next 10, 15, 20 years? That's a really hard question to answer, and I'd leave that to other expert members of the panel. What I do know is that, you know, when I was young, the concept was that you would train for a position and you'd occupy that position for the rest of your working life. These days, those sorts of roles where you don't evolve, if you like, don't seem to exist. And many of the jobs out there are jobs that will require nimble minds, individuals who are prepared to adapt to new situations. And so I can see, looking ahead, and not only in the long term, but even in the short term, there's a great opportunity for individuals who are really good at handling large data sets, but equally at home in doing qualitative research as well. And it's not an either or, I think it's an and. And so we'd be looking at our graduates to become more flexible, to become more adaptable, to be able to take on these new and interesting roles that are developing. And so, you know, when I was a student, I labelled myself a microbiologist. I'm still a microbiologist, but I think increasingly what we need is not microbiologists, but problem solvers. People who can look at a problem and say, I may not know personally how to tackle that, but I know the people that can. And so this is how we have to conceptualise, I think, work going forward. So welcome again to Melbourne if you're from outside the institution, and welcome to all our graduate students, our elite graduate students, if you like, from the University of Melbourne. And I hope you have a great evening. So I'll pass on now to Meenakshi or Ashok. And very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Professor Dick. There's a token
Thank you.
for the committee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So the audience can ask him any question if you want. And
But there will probably be people more expert than me than handling visa questions. But I'll give it a crack. Yes.
Quite a nice talk, and the thing you mentioned about working at common problems between Australia and India. So I was just wondering, so we already have an Australia-India institution to
Yes.
look at those problems.
Yes.
So how does the academia here collaborate the research via age of advising? Do you work together or it's separate?
I mean, that might be a good opportunity for Ashok or Meenakshi to answer that, because the MIP, the scheme that many of you work under here, has evolved, like good academia does, into the MIPA. And so do you want to say something about that?
I think the institute is not for the book, it is for all of Australia. And more they look at cultural engagement and other types of engagement in addition to research. Whereas we, as MIPA, we probably focus on the research. That's happening.
So yes, through graduate research students, MIPA is now a much more engaged collaborative arrangement than, say, MIP was. And that's where we see the future locally, certainly, if I'm getting your question right. Okay.